The 2024 running back draft class, Aiden, let's be honest, it lacks top-end talent. Not a single guy in this class is projected to go in the first round. There's no Bijan Robinson. There's no Jahmyr Gibbs in this draft. Some are saying we won't even get a running back taken in the first 50 picks of the draft. It's getting compared to the Bishop Sankey draft of 2000. What was that? 14?
Oh gosh, that was a disaster.
But Aiden, though this class is missing a ton of high-end talent, it does have a pretty deep amount of players that could be pretty okay to average in NFL terms. Guys that are probably going to make a running back rotation and make an impact and be useful players in the NFL. And what we know about the running back position, Aiden, is all we need is a little opportunity, a little volume, and you're the Kyron Williams. You're the Kyron Williams of fantasy football, right? So on today's episode of the Regression to the Mean podcast, we are covering 4 sleeper running backs in the 2024 NFL draft class that you should be paying attention to heading in to Dynasty Rookie Drafts. I'm your host, Sean Moran, and I'm joined by my co-host, my good friend, my fellow knower of ball, Aiden Haller. Aiden, how you doing today, man?
I am well, Sean. For those of you listening, it should be later on in the week. Caleb Williams will be a Bear a week from when you're listening to this, maybe even less. Maybe you're listening on Friday, Saturday. I don't know. So no, I'm fired up. We are so close to the NFL draft. It has just been so much information, so much smoke screens, so many different projections where people are going, etc. So no, I'm just excited, man. It's it's going to be a really fun draft. I don't think anyone knows what's going on outside of pretty much pick one, which is those are the best drafts. When we don't know what's going on, it's like there's going to be trades, there's going to be all sorts of wonky stuff that's going to be like, what the hell just happened?
It's looking pretty clear Jaden's going to go too, but we'll see. We'll see. There's no one. There hasn't. It's all been tea leaves, but that seems to be the consensus. Whether or not that's true or not, the consensus is forming around Jaden at 2. Very much hoping Drake May is a Viking, not a Patriot.
No, absolutely Viking. Not. Absolutely not.
Before we dive into today's episode, if you are part of the 70% of people that are watching this video but aren't yet subscribed to the Regression to the Mean podcast, you know what to do. Like this video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications to make sure you aren't missing any of the content that we're dropping weekly on this channel. All right, Aiden, the format is pretty simple for today's episode. We each have 2 running backs that we think are flying a bit under the radar that could have a pretty strong fantasy impact at some point in their career. Who is the first running back that should be on dynasty managers and fantasy managers' radar heading into the 2024 NFL draft?
Let's start small. I've got 2 very different running backs. So we're going to start with, I would say the kids' meal, but this is the smaller running back here, and it is Bucky Irving out of the University of Oregon. Looking at Keep Trade Cuts rookie rankings, they've got him as running back 8, which I feel like is pretty appropriate. He's probably be a little up, a little down, depending on the rankings you look at, but pretty consensus is like, this isn't going to be a top 3 or top 5 running back taken off the board. And that's for a number of reasons. The first one, kind of as I alluded to start with, is he's not the biggest running back in this class. He's 5'10", 195. The BMI bros, he's smaller. The sub 200 running backs, like, people are just absolutely terrified of. 3-year guy. He's turning 22 this summer. So, a ton of tread still on his tires. Not a guy that had a ton of carries over his college career. He had pretty quiet freshman year at the University of Minnesota, just a bit over 130 carries. Didn't do a whole lot there, but really popped at Oregon after he transferred. So in his true sophomore and true junior years, rushed for over 1,000 yards both years, 16 combined touchdowns. Actually led the NCAA in terms of catches at the running back position last year at 56, which is maybe a bit misleading. I wouldn't say he has the most complete route tree out of, from the backfield, but in terms of, quick dump off screens, like quick hitters, the dude's absolutely electric with the ball in his hands. I think his biggest strong suit is tackle breaking ability.
Yes.
You watch his tape and it is,
excellent,
ridiculously slippery. Not the quickest guy too. Like, if you look at his combine numbers, like, he ran a 4.5 something.
Slow.
The RAS score is not is not high on him.
A lot of
He's
red. A lot of red on that RAS card.
Yeah, it's
a
like
lot of red
because
on that card.
size is small, which is red. Wasn't very fast, wasn't all that explosive. Which again, these are all red flags. But you watch the tape and you're like, I want this. Like, I want this. This is a guy that isn't a 3-down running back by any means. Not very good in pass pro, but in terms of the soft hands and just pure play breaking ability in the open field, Bucky's a guy that I really like. I think depending on the right fit, this is an awesome like 3rd down change of pace running back. Maybe even a guy that is playing in between the 20s. Like again, 5'10", 195. I'd be shocked if he's carving out touches inside the 5 and 10 yard line, which I get it. It's fantasy gold. But running backs in the passing attack are so important in today's NFL. Most of these teams are rolling out 2-3 running backs, and you can't tell me this isn't a guy that's going to find a role from day one in the NFL. So I like him. But what do you think about Bucky Irving, Shaun?
There's plenty to like. I was a big fan of him before he tested at the combine, and
yeah, this is tough.
And I was gonna have him like be my number 1 running back in the class, and then he came out and was just slow. And basically his only comp in terms of production, height, weight, speed is Kyren Williams, which is awesome because Kyren just broke out, but at the same time, Kyren just broke out. It just broke out. It just happened.
Yeah.
I think there is a world where smaller NFL players are going to be more of the norm as the rules change, but we still want our running backs to be big. Bucky Irving lacks size, but everything else out of his size, speed, and his athletic ability, there's a lot to like. He really was an excellent tackle breaker, truly like elite tackle breaking skills. He had 69 broken tackles, AO. But he was excellent at breaking tackles. He was PFF's number 14th ranked running back last year, number 6 in 2022. He's fantastic pass catcher. You alluded to it. He had a 1.2 yards per route run, and it wasn't on limited volume. It was on 61 targets, so like legit receiving threat. He's got game speed, right? You watch on the tape, he doesn't look slow when you're watching.
No.
And he's got good vision. He's a good runner. He's a good player. But ideally, we want our smaller running backs to be fast, and he does not have that speed. But I thought he was going to be more of a day 2 guy. He's projecting as more of a day 3 guy, and the hit rate on day 3 guys is tough. But I think the talent is there. He could be. We mentioned Kyren Williams. Like, he legitimately has the same profile as Kyren. I think what stands out with Bucky versus Kyren is Kyren, I think, was better in pass protection than Bucky Irving was coming out of college. So it's just, I don't know. Well, he's going to have to fall into an ideal situation, but I think he's a very useful player.
Another comp
I'd take a dart on him. I'd take a dart of him in rookie drafts for sure.
Yeah. Another comp I saw, which is maybe a more realistic expectation, especially given how he performed last year, is like a Dameon Pierce type. I don't think either one of them are really built to play in between the tackles, which like they tried to force Dameon Pierce to do. He was much better the year prior, kind of in space. So I think the scheme kind of knocked him, but very similar size, very similar skill set to where it could work, but like it's got to be the perfect fit. He's not going to fit on every offense here.
No. And my next guy, I don't think would fit in every single offense either. I've seen his splits running in like a zone scheme versus like a man gap, and he's much better in certain schemes than others. But that's another diminutive short back. He's 5'8", but he's 220. So we got a thick boy here. Pause with Marshawn Lloyd, built like a fire hydrant. The running back Marshawn Lloyd out of USC. Ideally, Aidan, we want our running backs that break tackles. We want them to catch the rock, and we want them to create explosive plays. And Marshawn Lloyd, in his profile, is able to do all of that in spades, and there's a lot to like. He tested well at the combine. He ran a 4.48 40. He has good size, 5'8", 220. He's a great pass catcher at both South Carolina and USC, clearing 1.2 yards per route run in back-to-back seasons. And again, he has a really strong underlying analytical profile. Sean Siegel from over at RotoViz has actually these 2 interesting force missed tackle and an evasion rate statistics that he uses to judge the elusiveness of a running back. And Lloyd has the 3rd highest force missed tackle rate percentage at 15%, and easily the highest evasion rate at 37%. and his 4.23 yards after contact per attempt led the class. This guy's evasive. He's fast. He's built well. He catches the ball out of the backfield. He averaged a whopping 7 yards a carry in his last year at USC. He only carried the ball 116 times, though, which is pretty low volume. But again, he ranked number 1 in broken tackle percentage at 24%. So this guy's got a lot of the skills that we like for fantasy. He's going to break tackles. He's going to catch passes. He's going to create explosives. But the cons, I'd say the 3 major ones: lack of production. So like lack of production. Most snaps he saw in a season was 156. So that he's a part-time player in college. So that's already your first, strike.
That's a huge red flag to start with. Yeah.
2, he dances behind the line of scrimmage. Now, it might be part of the offense. They might give the running backs a little bit more creativity, but this is not a north-south runner. Coaches love that. Coaches love when you don't hit the hole that they block for you. And ball security issues. He's a major fumbling problem. So, didn't get a lot of snaps in college. Dances behind the line of scrimmage, and he's a fumbler. So that's set up for a bell cow role in the NFL, right? You could poke a lot of holes in Lloyd's profile, but at the end of the day, good receiver, really efficient, really good with the ball in his hands, great at breaking tackles in space, one of the better tackle breakers in this entire class. So you got to like that profile if you're going to make take a dart throw on one of these guys. Thoughts on Lloyd, Aidan?
Yeah, I think there's like 2 things I wanted to touch on. One, just like Bucky, like fantastic tackle breaker.
Yeah.
The guy is super slippery, again, rarely getting brought down by the first or second guy. And the second thing I want to touch on is kind of a combination of 2 things you said. Is like, one, he's a really good receiver.
Yeah, he's good.
But they hardly used him as one, which is so strange. He had, in his college career, 34 catches for 454 yards.
That's pretty fucking good. That's pretty good.
That's almost 15 yards a catch, but he had no more than 18 catches any season. It feels like, there's a lot of untapped potential there that we really didn't get to see. And then, the rushing production too. He barely touched 800 yards last year, did, 500 yards the year before. The production is not eye-popping, but you watch the guy run and you're like, I like that, like it passes the eye test every time. Like, here we go. But, we're going to find out, why wasn't he on the field more? Like, you want to be a full-time player in college, because it's rare you're a full-time player in the NFL. So if you're already not a full-time player there, why aren't you good enough there? But I don't know. He's a fun one. I think he has a really, in terms of like an overall skill set, like, he's got all the tools minus maybe like pass pro. But the sample size is so small there too. It's really hard to, say yay or nay in kind of in that department.
I feel like he's going to be ultra frustrating for fantasy managers because when he does get the ball, he's going to be pretty good, but he's going to get pulled out of the game a lot. He's been comped to DeAndre Swift in terms of height, weight, speed, similar back. I mean, that's pretty dank if you're able to get DeAndre Swift in like the 3rd round of a rookie draft. Like, we're pretty happy with that, but he might be kind of a frustrating fantasy player that gets benched mid-game because of a fumble. So talent is there, but I don't know. I don't know if the coaching staff's going to love him. Aidan, we're moving on to our bigger-bodied running backs here. You have the interesting running back. Very, very interesting. Might have one of the craziest freshman seasons of all time as a 17-year-old just tearing up the Big Ten. Tell us why you're intrigued by Braelon Allen out of Wisconsin.
Yeah, Braelon Allen is, again, another just like very hard
interesting player
evaluation because
player.
At the service level, he's 6'2", 245. The guy's a tank. He turned 20 years old this January. So to Shaun's point, this guy was 17 years old in college and had his most productive season. Just dominating. Reading out his stat line his freshman year in the Big Ten too, like, ground and pound, big boys up front. He had 186 attempts, 1,268 yards, and 12 touchdowns. Like, absolute beast. 6.8 yards a carry, just running through people. His production was pretty similar throughout his 3 years.
It was
like his last year actually was his least productive year, but not by far. He was 16 yards shy of 1,000. He had another 12 touchdowns. So, pretty much averaged about 1,100 yards a year, 12 touchdowns. One thing which I thought was interesting is, it's not huge by any means. He did increase his pass catching abilities from freshman year to the junior year as well. Get 8 catches, 13 catches, then 28 catches. So
it's pretty good.
Felt like it was
28
something
catches
that,
is pretty good.
You'll take that. So it's something that improved for sure. But then you look at his like measurables, like testing wise, and it's not all that encouraging. He didn't run a 40, which kind of just leads me to believe we're probably testing in the 4.6 plus if we're not doing it. Like, we know he's strong. He did the bench press, was second behind only Blake Corum. The broad and the vertical jump were towards the bottom. So again, not very strong there. But it's like, you look at the stats and you look at the tape and you're like, I like this a lot. Some of these other measurables are like, wait, what's wrong here? And Shaun, it's something you brought up here before we jumped on today too. And it's like, for 245, like, we should be in like the tackle breaking ability. Those two guys under 6 foot we talked about. Like, surely this is a guy that is bulldozing his way through to the second level, running through linebackers and safeties. That's not quite the case. He doesn't always play at 245. And maybe that's just because he's young. The guy, again, was playing 17, 18, 19 years old, like very young. There's probably still some room to grow there, but you'd like to see a guy at his size really use his size, because this could be a goal line back, 250 coming at you from the 1 yard line. Like, I like that a lot, but it doesn't always look that way. And it's kind of not concerning. It's confusing is the better way to put it. Sometimes, like when you watch him play.
He is confusing. I think something too. I think he lost a little weight. I think he's now weighing in at like 235, which is, I think, good for him. I think he needs to be a little bit lighter. But I mean, he's got prototypical size: 6'1", 235, 6'2". Right. That's exactly what you want. He's 20 years old. He converted to running back later on in life, so sometimes it looks a little unnatural for him. He has pretty good footwork though. And he takes what the block gives him, so he's not getting too cute. I heard this take that he struggled his junior year because they transitioned to a new head coach, Phil Longo, who was actually the air raid OC for Drake May's sophomore breakout, and Allen struggled running the ball at shotgun, but his freshman year, they got behind the line of scrimmage, I formation, and just handed it off to him. So I think he'll be scheme dependent to an extent, but I think an NFL team is going to take a look at his size, his age, the fact that I think he held up pretty well in pass protection, and the fact that he was good as a receiver. It's not like he's out here running choice routes, but like he can catch the ball out of the backfield and do it with some skill. Like, I think this is the type of guy you do take a dice roll on later on in rookie drafts because he checks a lot of the boxes. I do worry about his lack of tackle breaking and his lack of agility, but I think he's interesting. I do. I think he's interesting.
Who's our last guy, Shaun? Who's the fourth running back we need to keep our eyes on next week for our drafts?
I'm really excited about this guy. He's been a name on my radar. He showed up in a couple, prominent fantasy writers' articles. It's like, keep an eye on this guy. He's a tackle breaker. Keep an eye on this guy. He's a tackle breaker. He had a little juice coming into the draft, and then he ran a 4.71 at the combine.
It was slow.
Yeah, and we're talking about the running back out of Notre Dame, Audric Estime. That's a slow 40. 4.7 is what like linemen run, bro. That's a slow 40-yard dash for an NFL running back. And then what makes it even more confounding is that Estime then jumps and he has an amazing vertical and broad jump, and that's more indicative of explosiveness, right? Yeah, and then he comes out in his pro day. He runs in the reported 4.5s, probably 4.6s. So he ran much better at his pro day, which could alleviate some concerns. But outside of testing, Estime's profile is really intriguing. He was PFF's third-ranked running back in college football in 2023, and I think he's an easy prospect to get excited about for a bunch of reasons. He's got the frame to be a bell cow running back. He's 5'11", 221. He's young. He's only 20 years old, and he broke out as a true sophomore for Notre Dame. Love true sophomore breakouts. He's excellent in the red zone. He scored 29 TDs over the past 2 years in college. He's a tackle breaking machine. His 64 broken tackles were the sixth most of any running back in the draft. He wasn't used a ton out of the backfield as a pass catcher, but he showed legit pass catching skills. He caught all 17 of his targets, and he cleared a 1.2 yards per route run in his last year, and he cleared a one flat yards per route run as a sophomore. I don't think an NFL team is going to draft him to use him as a receiver, but he clearly is able to handle that portion of the game as well. I think the main knock on him is the speed, but you watch it, he is explosive. He had like the fifth most runs of 10 plus yards out of any running back in this draft. It's like he's creating a ton of explosives. He's got a great running style. He looks like a prototypical running back. Some people have comped him to Chris Carson, which excites me. Chris Carson was a 3-down workhorse that crushed in fantasy football. And I don't know, man. I don't want to get too into the 40 time. I don't want to see running backs running a 4.71 bad, but like he jumped out the gym on the broad jump and the vertical. I don't think he looks like a plotter. Keep Trade Cuts got him as what, the RB7?
Yeah, that feels a bit low.
I don't know, man. This guy looks like an NFL running back, but like I don't know. His production was fucking awesome for Notre Dame too. I don't really know what the issue is with Estime. His tape's good too. So I mean, I could easily see this guy being the best running back in this class, like if it shakes out the right way or he gets in the right spot.
I think people are really hung up on the 40, and I get it. But like, you look and like he was clocked like numerous times over like 20 miles an hour. Full pads, in game. So it's like, sure, like maybe he's just not good at testing, and that's a problem. Like whatever, like he's not good at doing the combine. He's not good at doing the drills.
Should have went to Penn State.
Some of it was,
should have went to Penn State.
Right. Those dudes test like maniacs. But it's like, I think it's funny the order we did it. Like I don't think we did it on purpose, or at least it's the way that I would do it. In terms like, I would probably take Estime first, and like probably going backwards to Bucky would probably be the order that I'm prioritizing these guys personally. In drafts, in my rookie drafts. Again, like it's gonna be very situation dependent in where these guys go. But like if I see someone that could be a potential 3-down back early on, it's probably Estime. I like Braelon. Like I think he's the best bet to score touchdowns from day one. And then Lloyd and Bucky are they are like those are true dart throws. Because those aren't going to be 3-down in between the tackles guy. Maybe they hit like a DeAndre Swift or more like a gadget running back. But I think kind of the way we did it reverse would kind of be how I'm prioritizing them. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking for 3-down viability, I think it's Estime, Allen, Lloyd, and Bucky. If I were like picking these guys in fantasy, I'm probably going Estime, Lloyd, Bucky, and Allen. In terms of upside, I think Allen probably has the most upside of this group, with Marshawn Lloyd coming in second. I just feel like Estime is the safest. If I were to pick out of these four guys. I don't know if I'd comp him like Joe Mixon, but he could have like a Joe Mixon-esque role in the NFL. James Conner-esque role. I don't know. Where's he going to land? Maybe the New York Giants need a running back, right? So maybe the Giants take one of these guys.
Maybe the Cowboys are still taking
Cowboys. One. Yeah. Whoever goes to the Cowboys is the number one running back in this class. I'll leave it at that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. They're drafting one.
Yeah, and like guys we didn't talk about, like the top three, I'd say unanimously are Trey Benson, Jonathan Brooks, and Blake Corum. I like those guys. I don't think Benson's a consistent player. I think Jonathan Brooks is really good. I like Brooks, but November ACL, I'm good. And I really think Corum's good.
I think Corum's good too.
But if you told me like Blake Corum does a nothing burger NFL career, I would not be shocked either. So
yeah,
I think all of these guys
are really confusing class, dude. It's a really confusing class.
I think all of these guys are so evenly ranked. Like you see, like Estime is someone's RB1, but he's somebody else's RB9, right? Like
that's what I was
kind of like a choose your own adventure, choose your favorite flavor kind of RB class. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
like there's
I would not. If you were
zero
drafting,
consistency.
yeah, there's zero consistency. If you're drafting for need for running back in a dynasty rookie draft, I wouldn't do it. I would
No,
just
I
take
would.
best player available. I would not.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. I wouldn't take one of these running backs over a wide receiver. Like if they're
no.
just because like
If
I
I
wouldn't
truly need
jump
a
two
running back,
receivers. Yeah,
yeah, I'm gonna
trade
use
for
my
one.
second round pick and I'll just go get one. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
just gonna go get one. Like you mentioned it in the intro, there is no Bijan or Jameer Gibbs coming out of this class.
or even like
If there is,
Chardonnay.
like, yeah, like I'll wear it on the chin, but it's like everything they're telling us, like if we get into round 3 without a running back, like no one is going to be surprised. No one's going to be surprised. There'll probably be some at the end of round 2, but if you told me we get to whatever it is, pick 65 after comp or whatever, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. None of them are that different or that much better than the other ones. It's tough.
Would you rather take Xavier Legette or Audric Estime in a rookie draft?
I'm probably get.
I think I'd take Estime over Legette.
But it depends on my roster. Like Legette, his tape last year was insane, dude. Like like the way he's running at his size is crazy.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
again, like Estimate is safer. Like, do I need a sure thing at running back? I have no other outlet to, get a running back on my team. Like, sure, I'll take Estimate. He's my running back 3 or 4 now. If I am loaded at wide receiver, I picked up a extra second round pick because I'm a great manager. I'm sitting there at 2-7 and Legette's there. I'm like, I might as well, dude. Worst case, he busts my wide receiver 6. So it's like,
Ayo, he busts.
It's it's all about risk versus reward. And I think like that's Dynasty in a nutshell is what type of risk can you afford to take with your current roster and what you're trying to do.
All right, Aiden. Well, those are our 4. I feel pretty good about our 4. I do.
They're fun
class
ones.
is
Yeah,
it's bigger than last year's because remember last year's running back class was awesome. It was just tiny. So you got big guys in this class. They're just not
for sure.
not as fast as the guys last year. But
yeah, which makes sense.
Aiden, thanks for hopping on. Appreciate it as always, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Until next time.